accessed the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Welcome, fellow Owens, to episode number 212 of the podcast of OA. This episode, we're going to be shining a spotlight on Soranik Natu, and as usual, we'll have our Know Your Core segment, as well as Green Lantern news. And joining me on this one is my good friend, Phil Bova. Phil, my friend, it's been a while.
It has. Happy July 1st, which is our recording date. Yeah, it's been a bit, man. Summer hit, and when it hit, it hit.
It was a busy month. You know, we both work in education, and the end of the year is pretty hectic. And you and I had a couple of days where we tried to schedule it, and then I had something come up on my end, and you had something come up on your end, and you know, June just kind of got away from us. But we're back and ready to talk some Green Lantern stuff. Fortunately, there hasn't really been a lot to talk about other than what we want to talk about, and that's Soranik Natu. The episode we did where we spotlighted Carol Ferris was pretty popular, so we thought, well, maybe she's the right one for Kyle Rayner. So let's do a deep dive on Soranik Natu and talk about her and maybe decide whether or not she is the right one for Kyle Rayner. But
I gotta say, I would have to say my choice for casting a Soranik Natu in a film would have to be Miss D from down in Australia. I mean, her costume.
Yeah.
Get out of the park, man.
Yep. Yeah, Darlene did a great job with that.
Give her the spot. Give her the role. Sign her up. I'll even pay some of her salary. I don't care. So, big shout out to her. I hope she's doing well. I know sometimes we chat on Instagram, so she's a sweetheart. I love what she's into. And if you guys don't follow her, get on her Instagram. I mean, some of her cosplays are just so elaborate and fantastic, and and some of the events that she's in and the stuff that she does is spectacular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in terms of Green Lantern news, there's not a whole lot going on. I think since the last time you and I talked, there was some stuff in Young Justice, and Tomar-Ray died. That was the last time we talked. Tomar-Ray had died. And Soranik Natu had a kind of a vocal cameo. You could kind of see her from the back in one of the episodes. And then Tomar 2 got Tomar-Ray's ring. So we got to see Tomar 2, which was really cool.
And I will peg this in there. I watched the last episode of Superman and Lois, which, I got to say, since I've gotten involved in that episode, they really, really do a good job with it. But I don't want to get too far off course. But John Diggle made an appearance at the very end of this episode. Now, I don't know if John Diggle is supposed to be an effing Green Lantern or not. I don't know what universe that falls into. I don't know anything about John Diggle and what he's supposed to be doing now. All I know is he came from Arrow, and then there's been all this stuff over the internet about him being Green Lantern. So I will throw that out there. So I don't know what they're going to do with this character moving forward in that series. He works for Argus, according to what they say in the series. So. Don't know.
Yeah, the way I understood it is that they kind of put closure on that whole box with the glowing green light, and it wasn't really a Green Lantern ring, which is what everybody thought. I'm kind of of two minds of that. I understand why fans kind of thought, well, it's logical for him to be John Stewart, essentially. But at the same time, I thought John Diggle was such a cool character. I didn't find it, to me, it was like minimizing the character to make him someone else. Why not have two really cool characters?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't follow any of that thread when the whole Green Lantern thing broke. Whatever.
Yeah, but whatever, Other than that, the other thing that's coming up is both Hal and Barry are on the cover of Dark Crisis number 4. And the solicitation talks about witnessing the birth of a new DC multiverse spinning out of the pages of the Flash. And Hal is on the cover, a variant cover for Flash number 786. So I'm not sure what it all means, but it's neat to see Hal and Barry being part of Dark Crisis together, because it's been a while since we've had a really good Hal and Barry team up.
Well, not only that, I know over in the pages of Flash, and I haven't really been keeping up with it because Wally West he's been the central character, but I know they're searching for Barry Allen right now. So I'm not sure what that title is going to do moving forward. I don't know if Barry Allen's going to take over that title anymore after this, because I know there's a lot of Wally West fans. So if he does, I'll probably pick up the Flash again. I don't know, but I did pick up 785, I think it was. The one with hold on, I got it right here. The one with Flash and I think Wally West, or it could be Reverse Flash. I don't know. There was two of them on the cover. Anyway, I want to get back into it because I know it ties into Dark Crisis.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they take it. I don't know whether you picked either of these up, but Hal plays a role in the new issue of World's Finest.
I have gotten that, and I also got Swamp Thing. Yeah.
That was the other one I was going to talk about. The two of them have Hal Jordan appearances, so we're getting some Green Lantern sprinkled around. I wouldn't say these were really meaningful appearances, but it's cool just to see Green Lantern showing up somewhere in the DC right now.
The cover of the Swamp Thing is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like the cover for Swamp Thing. And Dan Mora on World's Finest. Gosh, I'd like to see, he and Doc Shaner are two of my favorite kind of classic style artists right now, and I would take a Green Lantern book drawn by either one of those guys.
Yeah, you're not right. You're not wrong.
And I liked how Ram V wrote Hal in Swamp Thing.
I haven't read that yet, but I have heard good things about it.
Yep. I liked it. It was good. It was, again, he's not the star of the book, so he's a supporting character in the book for this part of the plot, but he does a couple of really cool things, and there's some great dialogue. Like, you can tell Ram V gets the character, not just the stereotypical version of Hal Jordan that you sometimes see pop up. You can see that he gets the depth of the character, which is really cool.
Right.
And
I seen on your list here that we have amazing, spectacular, and breaking news about the Green Lantern series coming out. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. We have this news flash. We haven't heard Jack beep.
You're right. The only thing that we've heard is that supposedly all of the scripts are nearly complete for the initial season, but there's still no costumes, and most of the casting remains a mystery. So don't know what to say about that.
When's it supposed to come out? Next year, 2023, right?
I'm not sure.
I mean, you're on July 1st now, and you don't have your story done, obviously, because your scripts aren't done. And you don't have any costumes or casting? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we've got what little casting we've seen, but...
And it's going to have a lot of CGI to offset it, so that's going to be a lot of post-production.
With this whole new merger thing and stuff, who knows what's going to happen? It's hard to say. But speaking of a Green Lantern movie, did you watch Top Gun Maverick?
I have not seen it yet, so don't go spoilers.
I'm not going to go spoilers. All I got to say is... it's the best Hal Jordan movie without a Green Lantern ring I've seen in a long, long time. If you ever had any doubts that Pete Maverick Mitchell was Hal Jordan without a power ring, that movie really does it. And what's interesting about that movie is a lot of people are talking about Miles Teller, who is one of the characters in the movie, and him being a good Hal. And I could see that. I could also see there's a character in the movie called Hangman. That's his call sign, played by an actor called Glenn Powell. And while the character of Hangman isn't really Hal Jordan-esque, I could totally see that actor as Hal as well. But to me, it goes to show you, if you get character and story right, it'll sell. I mean, this movie's done $1 billion at the box office. And like I said, it really captures the essence of Hal, even though it's not Hal. I mean, there's so much in common between these two characters. To me, it shows the value of when you understand the character and when you embrace the character, you're going to get good results.
I wonder if I wonder who wrote it. That would be interesting to know who wrote the character in that movie. Because in comparison value, you pick up on the fact that, I can see how this is written. This could be written as a Hal character. Whereas in essence, it's just written as for Tom Cruise, right? Or Pete Maverick in a film. But coincidentally, it compares to what we want to see on a film when it comes to an iconic character that we followed for this how many years now.
Yeah. And a lot of people still want Tom Cruise for Hal. And I'm like, I know the Maverick is so close to Hal, but I don't want to see old man Hal. And I'm not saying that I mean, Tom Cruise is younger than me and he's in much, much better shape than me. Well, actually, he might be older than me, but he's in much, much better shape than I am. I'm not saying he's not in good shape, but I don't want to see an aging Hal Jordan. I want to see him in his prime, and stuff. And I think he would have been a good casted if it was back in the 80s and 90s. He would have been a great Hal Jordan, but.
Well, and he's done, I mean, Tom Cruise has done a lot. I mean, he's done all the Mission Impossible movies. He's still kicking those out, you know. The Top Gun. The thing about Top Gun is like it's all genuine film, right? I mean, all the jets, all the flying, all the stunts, that's all genuine. I mean, that's nothing fabricated. And I know that Tom Cruise gets a lot of bad flack in the press and everything like that, but at the same time, I don't blame him. He's a great actor. He always has been. I've always liked his roles. They've always been great.
Yeah, I can draw a line between Tom Cruise the person and his membership in a cult. That's different than the roles he plays. And so I've drawn a line between the two. And I don't think I've seen a performance of his I didn't like. If you haven't seen, it's a musical, Rock of Ages.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and to hear him singing in that. Yeah, but he just really embeds himself in the role. But
yeah, that's an amazing film.
If you haven't seen the movie yet, honest guys, go and see it. It's a blast. But you and I have got some Soranik Natu to talk about. So before we enter the highway to the danger zone, let's take a quick pause here, and we'll come back and do Know Your Core.
Fellow Owens, welcome back to another Know Your Core segment. This week we have a doozy. Goes by the name of Tarkus Whin from Sector 1417. Universe New Earth. Tarkus Whin's creators are Geoff Johns, Dave Gibbons, and Patrick Gleason. The character's first appearance was from Green Lantern Corps Recharge #1, November 2005. The character's last appearance, unfortunately, was Green Lantern Corps Recharge #1, November 2005. On his first mission as a Green Lantern, Tarkus Whin discovered that star 196, the Class 4 sun near his sector edge, became unstable. As he planned to evacuate the nearby planet, the sun collapsed and turned into a black hole. As the pressure killed him, the Green Lantern Ring left him to search for a new lantern, making his corpse property of the Spider Guild. Tarkus was discovered by his replacement, Soranik Natu, who provided his burial service. He is later shown to be memorialized in the crypts of the Green Lantern Corps. There you are, fellow Owens, another awesome member of the Green Lantern Corps.
Listen up, Lanterns. It's time you took the oath with Green Lantern John Stewart. In brightest day, in blackest night, don't let the podcast of Oa escape your sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
All right, my friends, you are back and playing with the boys as we start talking about Soranik Natu. Okay, I'm gonna have Top Gun things all the way through this entire episode. You watch. By the time this episode is over, all of our listeners will have lost that love and feeling. That's all I gotta say.
And you keep on plugging those puns in there. All right. So let's make it better. Let's see how many puns you can make from Top Gun throughout the whole course of our segment here for Soranik Natu. I'll see if I can plug some in there too.
I'm a jester. I can't help it. So Soranik Natu, first appearance was like our Green Lantern Corps Spotlight, Know Your Core section, was Green Lantern Corps Recharge #1 from November of 2005. And that was the same month as the 5th issue of the Geoff Johns relaunch. So these two books were kind of launching hand in hand. And like Tarkus Whin, Soranik Natu is created by Dave Gibbons and Geoff Johns with Pat Gleason on art. And she has appeared over her career as a Green Lantern and a Sinestro Corps member in 275 issues.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And as you succinctly pointed out, Tarkus Whin was on his first day of duty, which was also his last day of duty. And he was killed by being sucked into a black hole. And in the meantime, Kyle and Guy get called to Oa for their assignments. And that's when they get assigned to be part of the honor guard. And that's the infamous scene where Guy Gardner moons Batman outside the Justice League satellite.
One of the best scenes. Probably one of the second best. I mean, the best one is when Hal punches him out, but I'll go for the Guy Gardner moon any day.
So Hal and John are assigned to Sector 2814. Kyle and Guy are in the honor guard essentially. And about 9-10 pages in, when Tarkus Whin's ring, say that 5 times fast, is sent to her as a replacement, and she initially turns it down because the Korgorians don't want anything to do with Green Lanterns. They see them as corrupt. They don't see the good in the Green Lantern Corps because of what Sinestro did. And we immediately kind of see the legacy of Sinestro and Katma-Tui with their people. The ring is kind of considered, and they use the quote, a symbol of pain and oppression. And they refer to Sinestro as the wicked and Katma-Tui as the lost. So she takes the ring to save somebody's life because she's a surgeon. And she uses the power ring to save life because of the fact that she's put in a situation where she has to do something or this person's going to die. But she's told by her kinsman that she has essentially damned herself at that point. And this issue really sets up the core. This is a fantastic miniseries. If you guys haven't read this miniseries, you really should pick it up. But this sets up the entire core by introducing Soranik Natu, Izamak Cole, Vath Son. And this is when Rand and Thanagar are at war with each other. So it really sets up the dynamic for those two characters. It also reintroduces Brick, Green Man, and Stal as classic Lanterns, brings them back into the fold. And you really start to see the emotional connection between Soranik Natu and Kyle Rayner right in the very beginning. Soranik Natu tries to quit, and Kyle has this almost empathic sense of understanding what's going on with her, and to some degree, and he seems to understand it. And so he kind of wants to give her a chance and wants to try to talk her into staying as part of the Green Lanterns. But while this is going on, there are black holes appearing all around the galaxy, and new Green Lanterns are being killed just as the Guardians are rebuilding the Corps. And we learn that Soranik Natu, by the end of the first issue or so, disappears into the same black hole as Whin because she's trying to find his body. Korgorian culture is very much about honoring the dead. And so she's trying to find his body, and she herself gets sucked into a black hole. That series brings back Bofunga. It brings the Spider Guild back in. It reintroduces Fatality, which was who was a Kyle Rayner villain. Brings them all back. So it really starts to flesh out what this Jeff Johns run. And I would hazard to say this is a Jeff Johns Peter Tomasi run because the two of them are so handheld side by side throughout this entire run for this whole thing. But the last time we end up seeing Soranik Natu, do you realize it's been 5 years since we've seen her? Her last appearance was in Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps number 25 from 2017.
Wow. That's the last time she was in an issue that appeared for anything, right? Yeah. And you're talking about an underutilized character. Granted, I understand when you got a library of characters like Marvel and DC does. It's one thing to have to shelve them every once in a while, but it's another thing entirely when they're a predominant member of one of the major components of the Green Lantern Corps universe.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's interesting. And Soranik Natu, I have to say, I think in my opinion, I think Soranik Natu is probably the best, most well-rounded character to come out of the Jeff Johns era. I really feel that way.
You know what I think she should do? I think it's time for her to buzz the tower.
Yeah. It's interesting because her role throughout the Green Lantern story in this entire reboot is really, I don't know, she has such a great story that plays out. She initially tries to reject the ring. She then, tries to use the ring. She comes out of this first story, and in this whole Recharge event book, this miniseries, she comes out of it learning that the Green Lanterns aren't what her culture thinks they are. And that it was really Sinestro that was the problem. And at this point, she has no clue whatsoever, and the reader has no clue that she is the daughter of Sinestro. We just think she's a cool Korgorian character.
Right.
She eventually decides to keep the ring, but the problem is that, her culture is not going to accept her back in open arms. And in this whole series of events, in the middle of all of this, we hit that 1 year later jump. So when the 1 year later thing happened, we get on the other end of that, and Soranik Natu has completed her training. She's a member of the Corps. She decides to go back to her home world and try to be a surgeon for her off-duty role. And there's just so much resistance there that they find the use of her ring really almost a heretical, and they don't want anything to do with her. And she uses her power ring again in surgery, and so they forbid her to even practice medicine. She gets evicted from her home. All of her belongings are thrown out on the street. She essentially ends up burning all of her belongings, just saying that Korgar has already killed Soranik Natu. And she's forced into living on the streets, and she starts using her ring to kind of help the homeless people out. And she starts to become a folk hero, which she's happy that she's helping people, but at the same time, she's not really comfortable with the fact that they're starting to label her a savior, because that's what Sinestro was, and she wants nothing to do with that. So it's interesting. Soranik Natu eventually confronts Sinestro during the Sinestro Corps War. Sinestro kicks her butt, which you would expect because she's a newer character, and with all of his experience, he should be able to beat her. But things happen throughout that, and eventually she finds out that she's Sinestro's father, and that's such a revelation to her. She obviously goes into denial. You get the heritage of the fact that she's not only Sinestro's daughter, but she is essentially Abin Sur's niece, because Sinestro was married to Erin Sur, who was Abin Sur's sister.
And and the thing about the whole thing about her being Sinestro's daughter, and just to seg into something real quick before you keep going. Not a lot of people know that, right? I mean, if you're a good Green Lantern fan, I mean, obviously a hardcore Lantern fan, the main body of Lantern fans probably know that already. But to produce a character like Soranik Natu, I mean, number one, she's a female. Number one, she's diversified because she comes from an alien race. She covered a couple of boundaries there. There's no identifying factor as to what her sexuality is in regards to, and there never has been in the comic books. From what I recall about her, she's had love interests with Kyle, but I mean, there's nothing been determined. What I'm trying to get at is she's another prime female character that can be utilized in that universe, much like Mera is utilized in the Aquaman universe, or Lois Lane is utilized in the Superman universe. I mean, it's a missed opportunity for her to jump onto the film. To not only that, but even the revelation of having an evil dictator or sociopath as your father. I mean, that kind of reveal is, fans eat that kind of stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
You got a story there that could be hashed out.
Well, and the whole story about how does she get the last name Natu? Well, yeah. Her father is rising to power, and that starts to have a strain in the relationship between Sinestro and Erin Sur. And she decides to leave him because she doesn't agree with necessarily what's going on. And Sinestro is starting to get threats. And the threats made against Sinestro and his entire family. So she leaves with Soranik Natu, and they leave Soranik in the care of another couple whose last name is Natu. And Soranik adopts their surname. And she believes that they're her parents. So that's why she doesn't know that she's Sinestro's daughter, because she was a very, very young child, is left in the care of somebody else. And Sinestro discovers where she is, and he's the one that leaves that mark that's on her face.
Right.
And that's actually the shape of his family's coat of arms.
Yeah, that I do remember. One of those things. I mean, it's funny little things like that.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Blackest Night comes along, and the two of them are starting to get a relationship. She and Kyle, and then during Blackest Night and Brightest Day, Jade comes back, and that really throws a monkey wrench in things, because if you remember, Jade and Kyle had quite the relationship.
They did, and Jade's another underutilized character. Of course, I feel like on the horizon they're going to flesh. Well, I mean, she's already appearing on screen anyway. But I feel like they're going to do more. I feel like they're going to do more with her and Alan Scott, to be honest with you.
Yep. And there's when Jade first comes back, she kisses Kyle in front of Soranik Natu. So it really, she loses that love and the feeling. So I got to use the same one. I can't help it. But she eventually gets kidnapped, and Kyle and Sinestro have to kind of rescue her together. And that's when she really learns the revelation of her true parentage.
Right, which leads into the War of the Green Lanterns, doesn't it?
Yep. That takes us right into the War of the Green Lanterns. And during that, the Star Sapphires show Kyle that he really loves Jade, and that he only was seeing Soranik Natu because Jade was dead and he didn't want to live in the past.
Which I gotta say, the coolest Soranik ever looked was probably in Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps books when she was wearing the yellow.
Yep.
Come on, she looks awesome.
Eventually she leaves. She gets captured by the Sinestro Corps. Sinestro comes back to the Yellow Lantern Corps, releases her, makes her the ambassador to the Green Lantern Corps, strips her of her Green Lantern ring, and makes her a Yellow Lantern. And then when Hal defeats Sinestro and he's presumed dead, Soranik assumes the mantle of the leader of the Sinestro Corps. And that was that whole storyline in Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, where the Yellow Lanterns and John Stewart's lead of the Green Lanterns try to work together as a partnership. And then there's this whole storyline with Sarko, who Kyle Rayner discovers is the future child of his and Soranik Natu's, and he doesn't tell Soranik Natu. And when she finds this out after he's killed, and she breaks the alliance, and that's it. And that's the end of her storyline. We don't see her anything since then. Such
a shame.
Yeah. She appeared in a couple of other comic appearances, like she was in Injustice 2, but that's not in universe, air quote.
Out of curiosity, the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, those are all in collected, right? There's 6 volumes of those.
Yes, I believe there's six trade paperbacks.
Okay. I want to get all those because I like that. I liked what Venditti did with Natu. I like what he did with the whole series. It had some question marks in it, but I think everything ever does. And you can't ever really pinpoint with every fan what's going to hit and what's not going to hit. Much like the last travesty of the Green Lantern book. Some liked it, whatever. Some didn't, like us. But we always harken back to these good issues. And we always harken back to like the nostalgia of the issues where we I don't know, drew some of our inspiration from, or that left the biggest impact on us when we were reading them, And then we got 5 years out, and we got a character like Soranik Natu that just goes underutilized. Which, it doesn't make it. It just makes very little sense to me when we're living in a society that's pushing the agenda of diversifying just about everything. And then not only that, it's a check mark thing, right? So you want to make sure you tick off all the marks to make sure that your character that you're putting on the screen or wherever you're putting it hits all these criteria areas to have a target audience to appease the people, and you have them. They're all there. Soranik Natu is one of them. The list goes on and on. Lissa Drax is another one. It's just, there's so many of these that just wasted opportunity, I say.
Yeah. I was really surprised and disappointed that we didn't see Soranik Natu show up in that Green Lantern annual that focused on Jessica Cruz becoming part of the Sinestro Corps. I thought that would have been a perfect place for her to show up. I think that could have been a very interesting dynamic.
I would read a book with Jessica Cruz and Soranik Natu headlining it, and have them be the leaders of the Yellow Lanterns. That book right there would be gold to me. I'd be all over.
Yeah,
it would be fantastic, and you know what? It would be cool if they spun it off to where they faced off against Sinestro in some kind of weird, twisted way, or Sinestro produced some kind of special ring outside of Parallax and the Fear entity itself. I don't know.
It could be really interesting because you've got two characters who are former Green Lanterns who understand and both, I think, kind of accept the fact that ruling by fear isn't necessarily the best thing, but if you use fear against the air quote bad guys, you're doing the wrong thing in order to do the right thing.
And let alone the team up value of having these two characters bouncing their personalities off one another.
Right. I agree. I think that's really a good potential team up. What do you do with the Soranik Natu character now? The story seems to have been told with her, but there's so many other things you could do with that character. So, but to get back to the the $1 million question: is she the right one for Kyle Rayner, or is it Jade, or let's see, who's the other person? Donna Troy that he had a relationship with. As long as none of them own a refrigerator, I think they're okay.
I mean, God, man, that poor Image is never going to be let down in the history of books, man. As far as love interest goes, I don't know. I mean, the thing about Kyle is, like, I never seen him attach himself to one particular woman, and and I don't know if that's just by my own way of reading him. Kind of like Hal Jordan has always been synonymous with Carol Ferris, but Kyle Rayner doesn't have a synonymous female character counterpart that you can place in that role, because he's never cemented himself in that kind of fashion to where he wanted some kind of long-term relationship or to be in love. He's just flirted with it most of the time. At least that's the kind of interpretation I've got from him. Somebody else who's a hardcore Kyle fan will have to write in or weigh in and, tell me to put my foot in my mouth. That's the kind of impression I've got from Kyle over the years.
I sometimes feel like Kyle's not looking for Miss Right. He's looking for Miss Right now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. He's having fun. He's having fun with all the wrong ones until he finds the right one, I guess.
Right. And not to say that he's flippant about it. I think he falls in love with whoever it is, but I don't think it's necessarily that deep level of commitment.
Well, and let's tread lightly on the fact that he's not a womanizer, and I don't think anyone's ever seen him that way. And unfortunately, Hal Jordan carries that little specter around with him as far as his being his masculine self. But I don't know. I don't care about Kyle enough to care about a love interest. So Soranik Natu, that'd be cool to see them two form something, but I'd also like to see Kyle be part of the Yellow Lanterns. I mean, I think that would be kind of
that could be interesting.
A curveball to the people,
I mean, I think Kyle and Soranik Natu could be interesting in the way in which it would give another layer to the whole dynamic with Sinestro, because there was already kind of a Sinestro Kyle relationship. I would say that Kyle is probably got the strongest opposite relationship with Sinestro, but below Hal. I think, Hal's obviously got such a long history and a very deep relationship with Sinestro. But if you look at the rest of the Earth Lanterns, I would say Kyle is probably number 2 when it comes to who's got him as an arch villain kind of thing. And him being really connected with Sinestro's daughter could make an interesting dynamic. But I don't know if it's worth retreading that again just for that potential.
No, and to be quite honest with you, if I'm gonna read about Soranik Natu, I would be more inclined to read about her on her own than having a male counterpart just to boost her character profile.
Right.
I mean, like, I've always, like with Mera over there and the Aquaman title, I've always felt like for a while there, I always felt like Aquaman boosted her character, but it needed to happen for a period because she didn't have that kind of balance as Lois Lane did as Superman, and now I see Mera as a predominant character up there with Wonder Woman and all the other top female protagonists. The one sad thing I do get from Mera is the fact that this whole Amber Heard, crap, and she's ruined that character. And I loved Mera. I loved her character. But now that's going to have to be recast, Who knows where that's going to lead.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
As far as Soranik goes, no, I'd rather see her boost her own profile by having... I mean, if you're going to do a team-up, her and Jessica Cruz, definitely. But if not, I mean, let her be the main player, and let her have her own until she has a romantic interest. I think that's an old trope anyway these days, you have to have a romantic interest for you to... I don't think that exists anymore.
Right.
I think it's more about solidarity with a lot of these characters now. And if there happens to be a love interest, everybody just is inclined to pinpoint it. They want to, oh, well, such and such is married to such and such is gay, or such and such is transsexual, and that person's married to this person. I don't care about all that. I care about the character. And I like the richness of a character, but that's what I want the character to prop up.
Yeah, I think you're always in trouble when you try to describe a character and you lead with the labels.
Yeah, I think it does it a service because you're automatically tagging it as something like you would any kind of label maker. Here, I'm going to put label cup and then put that cup out there. Well, I don't need a label telling me it's a cup. Let me figure that out for myself. And it's much like a character. I'd like to flesh out a character with my own thoughts, and have it kind of evolve organically with my own instead of somebody telling me straight up, here, this character here, we're going to make this character a homosexual and that person has a love interest is X. And it's like, oh, okay, could have put that in the storyline and it could have fleshed out and I could have read about it and been more satisfied than you just telling me straight off the bat.
Right. It seems like these days the creators have kind of lost the fine art of organic storytelling.
Yeah, it's all about your tag placement, and the generation is like that, though. I've seen a lot of generational kids grow up that automatically think they have to some kind of label placement before them for them to, I don't know, navigate through society. And it's like, no, you don't.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
If people want to label you, that's fine, but don't.
What I think would be really interesting is a book where Soranik Natu and Jessica Cruz try to change the Sinestro Corps fundamentally and ends up having a civil war with Sinestro leading one half of the Sinestro Corps, or the Yellow Lanterns, and Soranik Natu and Jessica Cruz leading another faction.
Yeah, and you could take it a step further by having one side lead by fear, using it as a weapon, and the other side lead by fear, using it as in a way to overcome it.
Yes. Yeah. That could be really interesting.
Dude, there it is. Look at that. That's a 6-issue arc you could do right there.
Yep.
And sell it. Give me an artist. I'll do a script.
Bingo.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's DC Comics. We shouldn't send it to them. They probably wouldn't go for it.
Write a pitch.
It would be a fanfic. That's all we're hopeful for these days.
Well, that's what's out there right now anyway, so. But anyway, we've got some listener feedback, so why don't we take a pause and we'll come back and we'll do some listener feedback.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what I do need. I feel the need
for speed.
This is Salak, Green Lantern of Sector 1418, and you are receiving the podcast of Oa.
The podcast of Oa.
Green Lanterns, the first message is from Matt. Matt has some information to share and wants your thoughts on villain-themed comics. Transmitting in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Myron and company. I wanted to follow up with you guys about my experience going back and listening to every episode of the podcast. I had intended to email again after I finished episode 60, but I accidentally got busy and went on through episode 91 instead. I wanted to let you guys know how much I'm enjoying your informed discussions about Green Lantern and DC news. It's been the one place I've found has clicked with my own tastes for exploring the themes and ideas in the books, and I always appreciate your views even when I don't agree with them. I also wanted to share some more of my background with you all. I've worked as a children's therapist for about 5 years now, specializing in working with children who have experienced traumatic or abusive situations. A big aspect of working with children is that they process their emotions and thoughts through play and activities, and so my office has a large playroom attached to it with different toys and things for kids to navigate and express themselves. I've always had a small collection of superhero toys because I've found that some children really respond to the metaphors you can do with the characters' backgrounds. Recently I added a separate section just for Green Lantern toys. I've found them a great way to teach children about their feelings, and stimulate creative imagination as well. For younger kids, the different colors and core help to build vocabulary for identifying what they're feeling, and it's easy to set up certain characters as symbols for what the child has experienced, who can then be defeated. For older children and teenagers, you can explore different characters on a deeper level for how they manage their emotions in healthy ways. Like Guy Gardner often gets angry and lashes out, but he can channel his anger in positive ways and be a hero. It's a creative way of teaching healthy mental health skills, and I feel like I've gotten success with them so far. Lastly, at this time in the podcast, you all are discussing the Sinestro series about partway through. I've found that villain-focused books are harder to execute well, and I wanted to ask you guys what your thoughts are about what a villain book needs to be successful. I enjoyed Sinestro a lot and had less mileage out of the short-lived Larfleeze series, and I found I didn't enjoy Red Lanterns as much as some others did, even after Guy took over the spotlight. For me, I feel like the villain needs a certain amount of depth to them, and need to naturally support a side cast, and this is why Sinestro didn't fail. Larfleeze, as presented in his series, felt more like a Looney Tunes character than he felt like the character introduced in Agent Orange, and it was a stretch to add interesting side characters since he has to be the single ring wielder. Red Lanterns met more success, but with that, I felt like they had to change Atrocitus a lot to try to make him able to support the book. He couldn't just be rageful and attacking all of the time. Sinestro is a more manipulative type of villain, with a history that crosses the heroes. I found that had enough depth to be naturally interesting, where you can watch Sinestro manipulate others and find ways out of situations. Do you guys have any thoughts on what makes a villain book successful? Thanks as always, and I will continue to email along my journey through the podcast.
Hey, Matt, thanks for reaching out to us again. I loved your information about what you're doing as a children's therapist and using superhero toys. I've always felt, we've talked about this in past episodes, and I'm not sure where you are in terms of when I talked about that whole thing, but using a Green Lantern ring to help kids overcome their fear is so powerful. And it looks like you're kind of doing the same thing and using a lot of different superhero toys. And I love how you're using the emotional spectrum as a way to teach kids about their feelings. I think that's fantastic. I mean, kudos to you. I give you a lot of credit for that. In terms of what makes a villain focused book successful and why are they hard to execute, I think the problem is so many villains are these still the traditional mustache twirling, I'm out to destroy the world kind of villain. And when you talk about books like Sinestro and the Red Lantern book, especially after Peter Milligan left and Cullen Bunn took over, is that those villains had interesting stories. Like, they weren't villains from their own perspectives. They were the heroes of their story. And when you can tap into that and tell an interesting story about why they have the motivations they have to do what they do, and you start to see that they have goals in mind that aren't just causing chaos and destroying things, I think you've got then the makings of a good potential series. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, no, I agree. Villains tough to peg because, I mean, often over time, sometimes these villains become distilled with, I mean, look at Batman. I mean, how many Jokers do you have over in that universe, and I don't even know, and I don't care to know. But my point is, like, I guess when I'm looking for in a villain, sometimes depth is one thing. I mean, I guess with my top villains, you're talking Black Hand, Cyborg, Superman. I'm also a huge Max Lord fan. And I like the depth of each of those characters, and I don't like shallow villains, Right. Darkseid has always been. The thing about Darkseid, I don't think he has a depth, but I think he has like a gargantuan presence that he's ethereal. He's there, he's there, and you don't know when he's going to appear or when he's not. And when he does, it's mega, right? And that's an omnipresent appearance of a villain. Whereas, if you had Darkseid appear every issue or every, whatever, he becomes distilled because he loses his power base because he's not omnipresent anymore. That's what I think sometimes works with villains when they come back after so long, when they're gone, when they disappear and then they come back. Zod's another prime example. He's formidable. But I've always thought of him as a structural kind of villain, and he has depth. Sinestro has depth, and I think that's what I look for mainly when it comes to a villain-driven book. I remember back when DC did that. Remember when they did that villain thing where all the
Villains United?
And I thought that was, I don't know, I didn't think it was as good as it could have been. They had all these villain books, and I just thought they could have been so much better when the villains were doing whatever they were doing. But anyway, but also mad props to how he, engages with kids. I mean, that's the thing. Like, kids often grow up with a shield, whether you know it or not. And it could be off something as simple as a pacifier or something as a blanket it carries around. Those are barriers, those are shields and comforts for those kids. It's not any different than having a superhero that you rely on or a stuffed animal that you cuddle with every night, But it's cool how he introduced that kind of concept to some of his kids with his therapy, and And that's an ingenious way to do it, especially when you have the passion you do for your hobbies and stuff, and the kids can kind of pick up on that. It's a good connection tool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Power Ring, why don't you play the next message?
Our next message is from Ken. He has several questions to pose. I will break the message up into sections, starting with the first two. Commencing transmission in 3, 2, 1.
Hey Myron and Phil. Here are some questions for you. 1. In regards to your Lord Malvolio podcast, when Green Lantern was a part of Action Comics Weekly, I thought it was because of poor sales, not a choice by the creative team. I always saw it as a demotion for the Green Lantern franchise as it didn't have enough sales at the time to warrant their own books. What happened? And how did it get a series again? 2. What if you could make a team of 5 to 7 Green Lanterns all from different sectors? What would be the purpose of your team? This can include deceased lanterns, especially ones that haven't been replaced or confirmed yet. My choices: Kyle Rayner, Soranik Natu, Hanu, Lyra, Isamat Cole, 2-6, inspired by your new Guardians but genuinely a great lantern, and Stell. Since each character has different abilities and skills, I would imagine they would be a group of honor guard lanterns tasked to help lanterns in the toughest of battles and war zones.
Hey Ken, hope you're doing well. The whole thing with Action Comics Weekly, I've heard a couple different variations of the story, but to listen to what the person who was writing the book at the time, he was saying that the book was selling really, really well, and that they came to him and said to him, well, we want you to write this as part of an anthology, and we needed a character besides Superman to anchor Action Comics Weekly. And that was why it was brought over, is because Green Lantern was selling gangbusters. And they thought, well, if we're going to have a character anchor the book, why not do that? And then that would allow us to have a character who's popular right now to anchor the series. And the reason why it went back was, if you look at some of the stuff behind the scenes, the editors that were working on all of that, they didn't really have a good system for doing a weekly book, and it got to be drudgery and hard to do. So at that point, that's when they spun Green Lantern back out again. They had just done Emerald Dawn, and Emerald Dawn got great reaction. So they were like, no, it's time to go back and do Emerald Dawn and do a sequel and start Green Lantern back up again. But it was interesting that the whole thing with Action Comics Weekly was that actually led to the writer leaving the book. So interesting stuff.
Always is. Comic book lore. What about the 5 or 7 Green Lanterns from sectors? Think about that.
Yeah, if you can make a team of 5 to 7 Green Lanterns from different sectors, what would be the purpose of the team? And this can include Dead Lanterns. Well, I want to see something with Soranik Natu, so I'm going to agree with Ken, and I'm going to include Soranik Natu. I love Goran's son as well. I thought he was such a cool character, so I think I would want him as well. He'd be an interesting character to have. And then there's that character, gosh, his name is going to evade my brain because he only appeared in a few issues, but it was during the Grant Morrison run, that character that was made out of salt. That was really cool. I cannot remember that character's name to save the life of me. But he was such a fun character. The name, I'm gonna get his name before this ends because it's gonna drive me nuts if I don't get the name of the character. But he was really cool, and to me, Raikatoro is his name. So I'd use Raikatoro, Soranik Natu, Goran's son. I'd use Hal Jordan, because to me, my favorite stories with the Green Lantern Corps have been with Hal with a bunch of crazy aliens. So I would do that. I think I would probably also do, maybe Liera. Like Ken points out, I like Liera. I think that's a cool character. I like Boudica, so I'd probably throw Boudica in there as well. And maybe just for giggles, I don't know if you remember this character, Phil, but Zax. He was like a giant cricket. I would do him too. I remember him.
I would do Sordom Yacht would be one of them. I love Sordom Yacht. Still wish I knew where he was these days. The character gone. Let's see. God, there's so many, Ken. You make this hard. We could do whole segments on Ken's emails. We should just do talks with Ken. Let's see. I mean, I don't want to pick Soranik Natu just because. I would have to say Jessica Cruz because I really do like Jessica, and I'm going to pick her over Hal Jordan at this point just because I want to pick something else between Hal Jordan. Mogo counts because I like Mogo. Bedigged or Bigged. I don't know how you say it. BDG.
Badge.
Sorry. And I don't know. Maybe I don't know. That's all I got. That's all I can think of right now.
Well, that's good enough.
It's good enough. Ken makes us think when he writes us. You know.
Yeah, I know he does. He does.
The unpreparedness of it.
All right, Power. Why don't you play the next question?
3. If the Human Lanterns had to join different superhero teams, which it feels like since we can barely get one Green Lantern book, which teams would you have them join? For me, Hal, Justice League, John, Justice League Elite, which should come back with Batwoman and Steel, Guy, Justice League International, Kyle, Titans, Simon, Red Hood's Outlaws, Jess, The Outsiders, and Joe, the Suicide Squad. Alan, Jade, and Kelly would join the JSA, Infinity Inc., and Young Justice/Teen Titans respectively.
All right, Human Lanterns on different superhero teams go. Let's see. Hal. You know what I'd like to see Hal on? I think I'd like to see Hal Jordan get into a Justice League Dark title. Okay, that'd be one of them. I'm going to throw a curveball on that. Guy Gardner, I actually want to see. I'd like to see him in a Justice League book. Period. Just Justice League book. John Stewart, I'd be okay with him being part of maybe a team up with Simon Baz, and I think they would probably be good on a title like not really a Justice League International, though I did like that title when it did came out. Maybe like a different type of Justice League book. Kyle, you pegged that one. He fits with the Titans. He always has, and pretty much he always will. Jessica Cruz. I mean, who do I go with on her? You had Joe at Suicide Squad, which I got to be honest with you, that's pretty ingenious. I hadn't really thought about that. And then have to second that. Alan and them, JSA, of course. You got to keep them there. He's a prime member of that. Yeah, and Jade would be good on Young Justice, Teen Titans. Who am I missing? Did I miss anybody?
Nope, you got them all.
I got to be honest with you, Ken. You hit a lot of them that I probably would have used myself. I've always liked a Justice League Dark book, and I still wish they always made a Justice League Dark book. And I think it'd be cool if it came back. Again, I think Hal in that book would be kind of cool. I'd like to see a relationship between him and Constantine kind of develop a little bit more. Or him and Etrigan would be kind of neat.
So I would want Hal in the Justice League, just because to me he's one of the founding members. I always picture them there. I think there's so much more that can be done with the relationship between him and some of the other characters. I just want to see that. John Stewart, I kind of want to see another Justice League team, and Ken mentions Justice League Elite, which I guess that would work. Or yeah, I think that would really work. For Guy Gardner, I want to see them bring back the Green Lantern Corps. I know it isn't a superhero team book. It is kind of, but it is a Green Lantern team book. I really liked his interactions with Ramey Hall and Von Dagel. I'd love to see them do that Black Ops type thing. So I could really see that continuing. That would be kind of cool for me. And yeah, I agree with you too, Phil. Kyle is a natural fit for Titans. You, Ken, and I all agree there. I would put Simon Baz on the Suicide Squad.
Yeah. And that made sure that I injected that thing.
Yeah.
Step out of line, buddy.
And he would be cannon fodder quite quickly. Joe Mullane, I think I'd put her on the Suicide Squad too, for similar reasons.
Right. You get the head punch too, baby.
Jessica Cruz, I'm not sure. I still want to see her stick around as a Sinestro Corps character for a while. I think there's some untapped potential there. So I don't think I would put her on a regular superhero team book. I think like with Guy Gardner, I'm putting him on Green Lantern Corps. I would make a Sinestro Corps book for her to be a part of. And Kelly, I don't consider her a Green Lantern, and neither does Jeffrey Thorne. And I mean, he and I actually agree on something, so I got to go with that. She doesn't go anywhere as far as I'm concerned. She stays in her coma forever.
Just for the record, I didn't even acknowledge her name because I felt the same way.
Oh, all right, Power Rangers.
Ken, I still care for you, Ken, but yeah.
Yeah, Kelly's got to go. All right, well, we get the next question.
4. What do you think of the use of codenames? I think the Lanterns with secret identities should use codenames when they are on Earth. It is weird to me that Hal, Kyle, and I'm presuming Simon and Jess, though Jess I think hides nothing, have to either call each other by their first names or the same superhero identity. The use of codenames would not only alleviate that problem but also make it easier for civilians, and new readers, to identify and acknowledge the different Lanterns. If it means we never have to hear the moronic, unrealistic, black or white one saying ever again, it would be a relief in my eyes. My thinking is that Kyle would go by Ion or Torchbearer, Simon would be Warrior, Jess Limelight, and unless Alan still has a secret identity, Hal would be Sentinel or Spectre. Technically the Lanterns could go by their sector number, but it just doesn't sound as unique or recognizable.
All right, Ken, I'm going to be as blunt as possible. I don't like code names and I don't like secret identities. I think those are all old tropes. Well, code names work for like G.I. Joe, and elite military groups. Secret identities, I don't think they can be utilized anymore. I mean, it's like you're protecting your family. It's like yawn. I mean, we've known that for how long now? And yet still to this day, they rely on secret identities as it's some kind of like shield to protect everybody around them. And I get it. It's feasible, but I just think it's old. I just don't think. I mean, even Clark Kent doesn't even use his secret identity anymore. And now it's more of a fact that it's more of that running thing where it's like, well, Clark Kent's or Superman's secret identity is Clark Kent. Okay, it's not secret anymore. It's just his identity. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I don't know how Myron feels.
I kind of like, we're going to go back to the whole Top Gun thing. Call signs. I can see that being interesting. And of course, Hal would be Maverick. So
I thought it was Highball.
Yeah, well, that's his pilot code name, but I could see amongst the Green Lanterns, they could call him Maverick. I could see that. Kyle, I like calling him Ion. I think that's cool. Gosh, John, I'm not sure what I would use for John. And some of the rest of them, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to go down to the territory of picking on certain characters, but because I've already done that this episode.
Well, he has Hal on here as Sentinel, but I think Alan would be more the Sentinel type.
Yeah, I like the idea of keeping Alan Sentinel just because that was the name that was the code name he went by for a while. Mm-hmm. Simon and Jessica, I don't know. And I'm not going to say what's in my head. So
this is a family friendly thing.
Well, it was family friendly, but
right. I'm gonna go ahead and not touch the Simon Baz part. He can just be around. Let's put it
that way. So I don't really have good ideas for them. But I kind of can get the idea of, if they're interacting and they don't want to give up their real names for whatever reason. I mean, Guy and John don't. And I guess that's why they wouldn't have code names. I can't see all of them. What do you think, Green Lantern? I don't know. What do you think, Green Lantern? So I can see them, I can see them having some kind of names to call each other when they're in front of the civilians. But I'm not sure.
Maybe they go by their call signs or their sector. It's like 2814 here. Wait a minute, which 2814 are you? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm 281.4. Wait a minute, that doesn't make any. And it goes on and on. But you're right. I understand the use for code names. I just, Just don't like them. Use their first name or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Guy and John obviously don't because they didn't have secret identities. But I can see how the other ones you might want to do something just to keep yourself from, just to keep yourself protected if we're going to keep secret identities. But I can see that. So we got one more question from Ken. So Power Ring, why don't you go ahead and play it?
5. If you could have 3 versions of one of the Green Lanterns team up like Spider-Man No Way Home, who would you choose? My first choice is New 52, Earth 1, and New Frontier or Red Sun hulls possibly going against Parallax, Earth 3, and Injustice Hal. My other choice is a team-up of the original 60s guy teaming up with the 90s Warrior guy and the New 52 Red Lantern guy. I would love to see something like this for Kyle, but I am not sure what versions I would choose. I'm imagining Earth 0, Evil's Might, and 1001 Emerald Knights Kyle going against Oblivion, Earth 3, and Parallax Kyle, but I don't know. I know Morrison did a story like this, but I found it very disappointing. Thank you for a great show.
Well, if I was going to do a Green Lantern version of Spider-Man No Way Home, I obviously would go with Hal Jordan because that's my guy. If I had to pick 3 versions of Hal, I like the New Frontier version of Hal, the current version of Hal, and the animated series version of Hal would be the 3 versions I would get together. So, Phil, what about you?
Okay, well, I was having trouble thinking about it, and you said, I'm going to go first, so that way it gives you some more time to think about it, and I came up with a really, really good one. I think a Sinestro would be cool, because your 3 versions, you would have your Green Lantern Sinestro, and then you would have your regular Sinestro who had that god-awful Joker-looking kind of outfit, Jester outfit, or whatever it was.
You mean like Super Friends Sinestro?
Yeah. And then you'd have, Sinestro Corps Sinestro,
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
And that would be 3 radical different versions of a character interacting in some space and time. Can you imagine the conversations they would have?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, especially for the Green Lantern version of Sinestro.
Ken, get back to me on that one. That's some deep stuff there, man.
Yeah.
I would like to sit around that round table conversation.
Yeah, that could be fun. That could be fun.
Yeah. So
all
there
right.
it is.
Well, Ken, thank you for your questions. And Power Ring, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody how they can be a part of the show?
You can become a part of the show by leaving a message up to 1 minute long on our voicemail line. Call us at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can also email us at podcast@blogofoa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, Myron. Episode number 212. Here we are, July 1st. Good times, man. This was a fun one.
Definitely. I enjoy doing these character explorations. We've got to figure out what to do for our next episode because we're not going to have a Green Lantern book. So you and I can touch base off mic and figure out what we want to do, whether we want to go back to the Jeff Johns run and continue where we left off or what. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do something different. Who knows?
Or you can, whenever you put this cast out there, you can do a poll and see if they want to do more of the Jeff Johns run or if they want to do another character like Soranik Natu we just did. Yeah,
maybe I'll go to the Facebook group and I'll also do it on Twitter. And I'll come up with like 3 or 4 ideas for the poll. But one will be continuing the Jeff Johns run. I'll pick out a character or so to talk about a highlight of that character. And maybe I'll pick out a couple story arcs from the past and see what they would like us to do.
Okay.
It'll be a listener's choice episode.
I like it. It's fun.
Sounds cool. All right, my friends, until next time, treat each other well, make every day your brightest day, keep that power ring charged, and stay bright out there, my friends. The Podcast of OA is the official podcast of the Blog of OA and a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. Share your comments and questions by calling the show's voicemail line at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can send your emails to podcast@blogofoa.com. You can also find the Blog of OA and the Podcast of OA on Twitter and Facebook. Green Lantern and other related characters are the copyrighted property of DC Comics Incorporated and are used without permission. The Blog of OA and the Podcast of OA are fan productions and do not claim any ownership over the Green Lantern or any other copyrighted properties.